Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Next Generation series of the think tank Vision. We are here this evening with an extraordinary panel to comment the rather surprising decision of The Economist, the international news magazine, to name Italy the country of the year for 2021. With us, we have John Hooper, correspondent of The Economist for Italy and the Vatican, who knows a thing or two about this choice. He's joining us from Florence. Then we have Bill Emmott, legendary former editor of The Economist, joining us from Dublin. We have, of course, the director of the Vision think tank, Francesco Grillo. And then always on the Italian side, we have Professor Carlo Alberto Carnevale Maffè, Professor of Strategy at the Bocconi School of Management, Professor Azzurra Rinaldi, Director of School of Gender, Unitelma Sapienza, and possibly we're waiting to know if Marianna Aprile, journalist and author of Balia, will be able to join us later. My name is Annalisa Piras. I'm a journalist and a filmmaker. We will have 1 hour time for this conversation, and at the end of it, we'll be opening the floor to questions from our Facebook audience. So without further ado, let me start this special event with a little bit of a triumphalism, because it doesn't happen often for Italy to be very proud of herself. And we have made a short video to remember why 2021 was a special year for Italy. Lovely video. Thank you, Claudia, for putting it together and remembering those extraordinary moments of this year. Let me give the floor now to the Director of Vision, Francesco Grillo, to tell us a bit more about this event and the Next Generation series. Francesco.
Thanks a lot, Annalisa, and I really compliment Claudia for a fantastic video. Welcome to everybody to this very special edition, this New Year's edition of the Next Generation series. I think we arrived to the 33rd event of the year, but this is a very, very special one. The video was sort of also a little bit moving, although I think that we are still missing technically the most important event, which was the victory of the 104 at the Olympic Games. And probably we are also missing the Nobel Prize to Paris for physics, just to be precise. So it was not just sports. And by the way, Paris is also from Sapienza, from the same University of Azzurra. I learned. I also thank a lot John and Bill. Legendary journalst. Bill was also the editor, and John is a correspondent for Italy in the Vatican of what I and Carlo consider the Bible. It is the Bible. To me, it is also a sort of family, because I have a very special relationship with John and Bill. I must say that once again, the British demonstrate a lot of self-irony, because the most glamorous moment talking about sport and about Italian victory of the 2021 was the final with England, and but they are very, very sporty. And okay, so going back a little bit to this very sort of surprising nomination of Italy as a country of the year. I anticipate to Bill and to John a couple of comments about Mario Draghi, Cristiano Ronaldo, and Harry Potter. I mean, the question is more to Bill than John, but John can comment. I still remember Bill. Now Bill pretends not to remember that he sort of compared Mario Draghi to Cristiano Ronaldo. Since tonight we are also being a little bit how can I say, constructively critical of this Italy being the country of 2021. I think that probably Mario Draghi would not be that happy to be compared to Cristiano Ronaldo. Not because they are two completely different figures. Mario Draghi may be more compared to Mancini if we want to really compare to somebody as far as soccer is concerned, because he's not a striker. As a prime minister, he should be more supposed to organize a team. However, I think also that as Cristiano Ronaldo, in fact, like Cristiano Ronaldo, Mario Draghi cannot make miracles. In fact, he's not Harry Potter. As we commented a few times with John Cooper. I believe that it is true what I think John wrote for The Economist, that Italy has done much better. It is in a much better position now in 2021 as opposed to 1 year ago. It is true that we had some very clear success, for instance, on the vaccination campaign. We certainly rebounded much strongly than, for instance, Spain in 2022, as opposed to the pandemic, in 2021. But still, Mario Draghi cannot solve all the structural problems of Italy, because after 20 years of decline, we need, if not 20 years of recovery, at least a long period of structural, profound, I would not just call them reforms, of change, of transformation. And I also think that they will happen only if we will be able to mobilize the entire country into a project of transformation. So in a sense, the comparison between Draghi and Cristiano Ronaldo is exactly that, like Cristiano Ronaldo, who in fact did not make Juventus to win even more, which was quite difficult because Juventus was already a rather winning sort of team. Mario Draghi cannot transform a country on his own. He's a very important point of reference. He can be a leader, but he's not enough. So now one of the arguments that we will touch tonight will be also in terms of political outlook. So we will certainly also talk about Mario Draghi becoming the president of the Republic, or staying prime minister, and so on and so forth. But I will leave it for now to John for a general explanation of his own idea of Italy being the country of year 2021. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Francesco. And yes, indeed, let's hear it from John, who obviously had something to do with this choice. From the words of the Economist, it looked like that more than sporting or musical triumphs, it was about the change in the political mood, and not necessarily due to the leadership. John, can you help us explain a little bit better the thinking that you made with your colleagues at The Economist?
Yes, Annalisa, the way it works is that the foreign editor of The Economist puts out an email to all the correspondents on the editorial staff, in fact, to asking them for nominations for their idea of a country of the year. And what I said was that this year, for once, Italy was a valid contender. And the idea was picked up by some others who, alongside a number of other nominations, strong ones for other countries, Zambia, Samoa, Lithuania, Moldova, and what the way of the process works is the foreign editor whittles it down to a short list of 4 and then asks the people who originally proposed those countries to speak for a couple of minutes, first of all to the foreign department meeting and then to the entire editorial staff. And the points that I made in putting forward Italy were that it has been an annus mirabilis of the kind that you've mentioned already, or rather that we've seen in that video. But that this was also a year in which most unusual.
So it was
sorry, Annalisa, I was just going to go on to say that most unusually it was a year in which GDP grew by 7, well, it probably is going to be about 7% by the end of the year, 6 to 7 maybe. And that there were 2 reasons behind this that I could identify. One of them was the good performance on vaccination, one of the highest levels in the world, and this unaccustomed political unity, bringing all the parties into alignment, or all but one of the main parties into alignment and in support of a genuine reform program. But there are no doubt, counter arguments to that. There were certainly others at The Economist who thought that other countries deserved it better. But in the end, the choice fell on Italy, and I'm delighted it did.
Out of curiosity, who was the runner-up?
Lithuania, for having stood up to China and having stood up to Belarus. And others in contention were, as I mentioned, Moldova, Samoa, and Zambia.
Right. And earlier on, you were mentioning some critical points made by a colleague, I think, in Reuters.
Yeah, my friend Gavin Jones of Reuters, who said he thought that the choice of Italy was absurd because, well, he gave a number of reasons, actually. One of them, I think, is worth our discussing, which is that Italy had such a sharp fall in economic growth as a result of COVID that it couldn't, just mathematically, it was going to come back more strongly than a country like Germany, which didn't suffer very much. Now, I think actually there's a counter argument to that, which is that again and again, what we've seen over the last 20 years is that when Italy has fallen, it's fallen more than the other EU countries. And when it's come back more weakly than the other EU countries. And this time that didn't happen. For once, Italy has rebounded strongly. And I think that speaks to a new era of confidence in the country that's also reflected in a high recent level of investment.
Right. That's very interesting. And it's very interesting that you make an historic reflections on Italy, because I would like to give the floor now to Bill Emmott, who has written about the need to look at the next decade, not only the next year, to understand Italy progress towards a stronger, healthier country. But of course, Bill also made, with myself, a film 10 years ago, Girlfriend in a Coma, about Italy seen from abroad. And 10 years ago, there was another Super Mario in Palazzo Chigi, Mario Monti, and there was the same kind of high hopes and expectations that were very short-lived. So the question to Bill, was author also of Good Italy, Bad Italy, from which we were inspired to make a Girlfriend in a Coma. The question, Bill, is will we have to wait another 10 years for another Super Mario to come along? Is this a cycle? Or do you see signs that, contrary to what happened in 2012, 2013, when Mario Monti was at Palazzo Chigi, this time there are more solid reasons to have hopes based on facts? Bill.
Well, thank you, Annalisa, and it's very nice to be here with you all. I'd say, in answer directly to your question, that the big difference between the time when Mario Monti was in Palazzo Chigi and Mario Draghi's time is roughly 200 billion euros of EU money. Basically, the Mario Monti period was a period of reform, but reform which consisted of pain, of sacrifice, of fiscal austerity, of cuts, which actually mirrored reform programs that had happened over the previous 25, 30 years, ever since Mario Draghi was Director General of the Treasury in 1992, when Italy had the humongous financial crisis that, in a way, laid the groundwork for the next 30 years of underperformance economically. So now we've got Mario Draghi arrives and there's 200 billion euros of public investment available. That's enough to cheer most people up, frankly. And so I think that while it is wonderful, of course, that Italy had all those sporting achievements and the musical achievement as well in the lovely video. And every country needs confidence and psychology to cheer it up. And then it's got an extra little boost from the Economist's vote as country of the year. The real fundamental fact is that this time is different because there's money on the table. And that's why there's more hope than before. I would say, just as an old Economist editor, that to Italians who absolutely are right to feel happy about being named a country of the year, and I presided over many covers which were rather more negative about your wonderful country, and indeed became slightly notorious for some of those negative covers. So I think it's wonderful that there's now something positive, but my message to you is don't get used to it. Don't take it too seriously either. This is a bit of an end of year, light-hearted evaluation by the Foreign Department of The Economist, that, by the way, started after I left. And nobody remembers who was the country of the year in 2020 or in 2019 or in 2018, because life moves on. So the question for Italy is, how will it move on? Mario Draghi might be in the Quirinale for the next 7 years. We can discuss whether that's a good idea. Maybe he's going to oversee this process. Has Italy changed fundamentally in 2021? I would say no, but it's got a chance. A platform has been built. The ship of state, if you like, has been steered in a more stable direction by the government. Draghi is Ronaldo in the sense that he can't change everything. Portugal did not win the Euro tournament, did not win the World Cup. Manchester United is not going to win the Premier League just because of Ronaldo being there, and Italy is not saved by having Mario Draghi, but he has stabilized the ship. He's been a good leader. But the question is, what will the next 3 governments do over the next decade? And those 3 governments may be of 3 different parties, or there may be another person called Mario waiting in the wings to be the next one in 10 years' time. But everything is there in politics. He's built a platform. There's 200 billion euros of public investment being spent over the next 5 years. Let's be cheerful, but let's see how it's spent.
Of course. And yeah, the frailty of the political system is still there. What has been a constant weakness of the Italian system as a country has been the instability of its governments, and that is not going to go away. On the contrary, we may see it very soon coming back to the front of the scene. But for now, let's look also at some more fundamental facts about the economy. I would like to ask Carlo Alberto Carnevale and Maffè his views on what there is there of reality in the economy that could justify any kind of optimism. Carlo.
Yeah, Annalisa, you know, any sufficiently advanced politics is fundamentally indistinguishable from magic. So Mario Draghi is no Ronaldo. John, Bill, is Harry Potter, okay? Pronouncing the levitation charm, you know, Wingardium Leviosa of the GDP, as well as the country reputation. And thank to you guys for that contribution. Alas, the appointment of Mario Draghi is the certification of a structural failure, as opposed to a contingent success of the Italian institution. Let's see the numbers. GDP plus 6 something percent. Wow. 200 billion plus of investment approved by the European Union for the recovery plan. Double wow. An ambitious program of reforms, 51 targets and milestones achieved by the end of 2001. Really? Okay, let's go back to the numbers again. GDP plus 6%. Honestly, I mean, you can make 6% if you spend 20% of additional point in debt ratio. We spent 300 billions to sustain the Italian economy, and they translated in 6 points. Most of them has become saving into bank's account, not consumption. The largest contribution to GDP this year comes from real estate investment. That is a non-tradable sector, and it's been triggered, we're talking about 17% growth, okay, by insane subsidies, the famous 110% subsidy for restructuring, which is totally insane. It's both regressive and inflationary. It's a disaster, and we know that Mario opposes it, but that's a fact. It's Italy, it's not Mario Draghi here, okay? Second point, the government in 2020 and 2021 has directly spent 57% of GDP, 57%, okay? It's more than being communist, okay? With an allocation of 69% of overall GDP expenditure. The fiscal measure of pandemic support are unmatched by any other Western country. 35% of GDP put on the table in loans and guarantees, more than twice as much as UK, Spain, and France. The potential impact in terms of, non-performing loans on the banking sector are scaring, my friends, in the next couple of years. And now the jewel in the Emperor Super Mario crown, the recovery plan, Bill. So we're spending 200 billion on new debt. Let's celebrate new debt. We have a lot of it, so more is better. If I may, I hope we will not spend $200 billion in that way for a very simple reason. And I read the documents of the government. The estimated impact of on the Italian economy of this mountain of public expenditure as an implicit economic multiplier of 0.9. Lower than 1. That means in economic terms that it's a straightforward destruction of economic value. Net of institutional reforms, of course, which are the other part, okay? And there will be very little contribution to the long-term growth of the output potential. So sorry for the recovery plan, but most of recovery plan expenditure require heavy imports in terms of goods and services from abroad. And they're putting in danger the equilibrium of the trade balance. That's, for me, it's insane. I mean, we are investing at the bottom side of the value chains as opposed to the top side, okay? Consider that, exports have been the leading part of our, little growth in the past couple of years. So while all the sport victories are maybe not just panem et circenses, as I understand, okay, they still help the mood of the country. But again, Super Mario is the sign of illness. It's not a sign of recovery. I'm sorry about that. I would like it. Lucky is the nation that doesn't need heroes. And we don't want a hero, Bill. We want regular people running this country in a regular way. And, of course, I wish Mario Draghi 100 years of leadership, because is honestly our only hope. But hope is not a strategy. So we need a strategy for this country, and it's going to be a democratic, capitalistic, liberal strategy, if I may. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlo. And of course, it's a very sobering intervention, the one you made. But of course, we don't need heroes, but sometimes they help. And certainly, Mario Draghi has managed at least an impression of national unity. I was wondering if John and Bill share the rather gloomy economic analysis of Carlo. John?
I take a number of the points that he makes. I think that the problems of Italy are deep-seated. Some of them are not even economic, they're social, and that makes them far more difficult to change. But having said that, I think that what we're seeing in the plans that Mario Draghi has put in place is, if you like, the skeleton of a reform program going forward. I mean, he is proposing things that have been proposed now for years and years, and some of them have actually been put into place this year. Not enough, I agree. There's going to be a reform of the land registry, the cadastro, for example, that got scotched by the League. Others have been scotched by other parties. And the idea that, the politics can continue with a sensible technocrat in charge forevermore, no, obviously that's just not realistic. And what we really need to see, I think, and I would actually make one point here in parenthesis, which is that the prize, if you like, of Country of the Year is retrospective. I mean, it's for 2021. It's not for 2022. And there is even the Economist curse to be taken into account, whereby, whenever we congratulate some country on its democratic progress. That's the prelude for a military coup the following year. You know, I look forward with a degree of hope to 2022, but a good deal of trepidation as well. And I think what we really need to see is that this annus mirabilis provides a platform for a social change and a change among Italians to be more ready in the future to take risks, to accept reforms, even if they're painful ones, for the long-term good of the country. Whether we're going to see that, I don't know.
Oh, I agree. I'll chip in. I agree with that. I mean, I think that the reason why I advocate Draghi moving to the Quirinale is that I think that gives a chance, not a guarantee, a chance that he can act as primary public communicator for a long period, for 7 years, to try to encourage that kind of change. Neither he nor anyone else can pull levers in Palazzo Chigi to make all the changes that are necessary. And anyway, he's guaranteed not to really be effective beyond roughly the middle of next year, but because of the elections coming up. So I would advocate him being there as at least a sort of papal figure, of course, in the old home of the popes, but offering kind of guidance and advice. But that isn't going to be enough on its own, of course. It cannot guarantee anything, but at least it means he plays a role. But the fundamental questions are there in both politics and economics. If you just look at the economics, I absolutely think I would disagree with Carlo in the negative view of the national plan and of that debt. It is a useful and necessary step, I think, to encourage private investment, which of course is what Italy needs. That's the only sustainable way to become the country of the decade. But the question is, can the politics actually facilitate that? Will the reforms of justice really be followed through? Will anything serious happen in public administration? Everything is in the hands of the next political cycle. And I think you're absolutely right, Carlo, that basically Draghi is a sign of political failure. And let's face it, no prime minister has really been elected as prime minister since Silvio Berlusconi in 2008. That's the last election which produced a winner on the basis that they were the candidate to be prime minister and formed a government on that basis. Even Enrico Letta in 2013 was a kind of compromise, sort of awkward coalition that was put together in basically a stalemate, and nobody since has actually been elected to office. And that's a terrible sign of political failure.
And talking of which, Bill, you've been observing Italy for a very long time, and you mentioned the famous 2001 cover on a certain Mr. Silvio Berlusconi. You put the headline, "Why this man is unfit to lead Italy." That was 2001. We are in 2021, and a candidate to the Quirinale who has some popular support is Silvio Berlusconi. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that he is absolutely the devil that will never disappear until he is in his mausoleum. He is absolutely a proof, as with Trump, as with Boris Johnson, as with other people like that, that they never say never. They always think there's another hope. And if you've got a billion euros in your bank account, you can even think you might be able to buy the votes to become president of the Republic. So yeah, I think that the prospect that he could be a serious candidate for the presidency tells you everything you need to know about Italian politics in many ways, I'm afraid. I pray that he doesn't. And by the way, I didn't write the headline for that Economist cover in 2001. That was by my deputy, Clive Crook. I give him all the credit. And the Europe editor, Zan Smiley, wrote the editorial. But yeah, I took all the credit for the succeeding 20 years.
Well, there's the small print of history. But talking on the most, the least successful aspects of Italy in 2021, let me bring in Azzurra Rinaldi, director of the School of Gender, Unitelma Sapienza, because amongst the not so positive records of Italy in 2021 is that Italy is still 14th in the gender equality ranking in the European Union. That's a shameful ranking. It's 4.4 points below the EU average. So we're talking about a very, very abysmal record. It is true that Italy has been improving faster than other countries, but the departure point was very, very low. Azzurra, what do you make of the state of gender equality in Italy?
Well, thank you, Annalisa, and thank to all of you before me. I just took some notes because John was saying that some of the problems of the countries are social, and indeed, Mario Draghi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Harry Potter, what we are doing here is so Italian, you know, we are just talking about men. And so I would just like to talk about women, and I will start with some data as well, because, you know, Italy has kind of a problem with women, and I will start talking about the female workforce, because we have data about the last year, which are absolutely discomforting, because during 2020, 3 out of 4 lost jobs were female jobs. We are far from the Lisbon target of 60% of female employment rate. And we also have the last data released by ISTAT, the National Institute of Statistics, which are quite surprising, I would say, as well, because on October, despite an increase of 35,000 jobs the previous month, none of them was a female job, neither one. We had a 0% increase. Furthermore, in the Global Gender Gap Report 2021, Italy, as we know, ranks 63rd according to the overall score. But when it comes to economic and economic participation and opportunity, we fall to the 114th position out of 156 countries, not to mention the 127th position for the wage equality for similar work. So just one more data that has been released by the European Institute for Gender Equality. As you know, this is an institute that each year releases the Gender Equality Index for the EU member countries. And what about Italy? We found that in 2021, both women's political and social power is well below, as you said, the average EU values. And also, according to the latest Social Progress Index 2021, the worst values for Italy are the ones related to the categories of personal freedom and choice and inclusiveness. And I think we could also recall talking about social issues, what happened with the ZAM bill, you know. So, and why I'm saying that is just because, of course, we are so happy, and Italy may even be the country of the year 2021, but it is a country that still needs to face those, you know, a bunch of traditional obstacles, also to a cultural transition. This is not, and you know, I'm an economist as well, but it's not just about GDP. It's not everything about GDP. And now this cultural transition, I think, is, you know, just needed more than ever. Francesco also was talking about the structural issues of the country. And he said, yeah, of course, Mario Draghi cannot transform a country, and I do agree. And so, yeah, I think that this is something that we need to work on. We really need to have a different and also more, possibly more inclusive leadership. And we also know what happens where when women are in charge in the companies, the value of the company increases 6 to 8 points according to the researchers. And we have this recent research from PCC and Carleton University. We have this report, which is called Gender Equality Insights 2021, that states that actually increasing the share of women on boards leads to a better business outcomes across a suite of performance metrics. We also know now that we have the skills that have been named soft skills, which is a female thing, obviously, that are essential for the functioning of the company and also of those little groups within the company. And Bill said the question for Italy is how it will move on. So I think we will possibly need to transition also to a less muscular and masculine kind of leadership. And after all, Adam Smith himself, and I love to recall it every time, before writing The Wealth of Nations and the Principle of the Invisible Hand, wrote the Theory of Moral Sentiment, where a whole chapter was dedicated to sympathy. And that we all know that empathy has been the key factor also for governments in dealing with the pandemic last couple of years.
Indeed.
Yeah, and then we know we have many researchers about that. And so what I would ask for my country, is just let's close 2021 with all of these sports, incredible sports, and not only sports achievements, but if I think about what I would like for my country in the next year, I would really like a shift to a different model, and also
Azzurra, briefly, because it's interesting that Italy in the past 10 years has progressed faster than any other country, even though it's still very, very low. Could you name something that in your observation has changed to accompany this sudden change? And of course, you were right in reminding us that there is a huge body of research that shows that when there is more gender equality, the economy also works better. So it's in the interest of everybody in Italy to tackle this problem once and for all. But if you could just list in your mind a few things that made this sudden change in the past 10 years for Italy.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange coincidence, because 10 years ago, we had this law, the Golfo Mosca law about quotas. And this is when we started to raise, in the international rankings on GDP. And, I don't like quotas, no one does. But what data show us is that they help, and they hasten a process of cultural transition. And I think it's not just me, but data show that this is the most important factor that can help also understanding why, despite all of these other data, we are just getting better in the international index. And let me just say one more thing, because now we are very close to the nomination of a new president, and everyone asks me, oh, Professor, would you like a female president? Is not just, we in Italy we say una donna, take whoever comes outside your door, and whatever it is, just any woman. It's not, I think it's not just taking a woman, any woman. It's, in the case it is, she's a woman, just providing for maybe for the first time that this is also a country of possibilities, that if you work hard and study hard, you can reach also, a goal like that. And, no matter what, even if you're a woman, but the same applies also to all the other categories that are perceived as different from the mainstream, I would say the male stream. So that would be very interesting.
Absolutely, and I can't agree more. I mean, just for the record, Italy is the only one of the big 5 European countries who has never had nor a prime minister, a female prime minister, nor head of state. Now, I I've just been told that Marianna Aprile will not be able, unfortunately, to join us. She has a problem with the connection, but we have a very valuable alternative, and we are very happy to welcome Stefania Giannini, former Education Minister for Universities, Research and Education, and currently UNESCO Assistant Director General for Education. Stefania, are you with us? I can't hear you.
Hi.
Hello there.
Good afternoon. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me, Francesco. I was as an observer watching the program, the event on YouTube. So congratulations for focusing on such an important topic.
Thank you so much. And as a former Minister of Education, you must have some clear ideas about what Italy has done and what needs to be done really to deserve this title of Country of the Year in 2021 and possibly in 2022. What would you say has been the biggest change in the past years, and what it is that we really need to work on? Because education in Italy is a very important subject to change the culture of this country. Stefania.
Thank you. Well, before addressing your question, with pleasure, just a few words on the real topic you are talking about today. And I carefully read with pleasure from my current position as a global observer and looking at Italy from distance, the two contributions from Bill and Paul recently. I'm actually, as an Italian abroad, living abroad, and also representing not my country, because I mean, in the UN, as you know, we are not representing our nationality, but I mean, being an official of the UN, I'm proud to see my country, ranked as the first of this year, and hopefully being very much well positioned to become one of the first of the next decade. Having said that, honestly and sincerely, as I also lived very actively one of the first season of having a hero cheering the country, so to say, or leading the country, the first Mario. I ran as a senator and being elected as a senator in the as one of the founder of the Scelta Civica. Maybe you remember, some of you, the movement led by Mario Monti. And also that time, I remember, the international press and all different constituencies around Italy were watching with favor and with a lot of hope that the country was actually turning around very positive. Of course, another time, another moment in history, so much to cut, not so much to invest and to spend. So we cannot compare, actually, and two different personalities, absolutely. So nothing to say in terms of my additional and of course not obviously not necessary appreciation of the great leadership of President Draghi now. But I don't think, as a former politician and a former minister, that Italy needs, as any other country, an hero, leading, having the role to give hope and to give trust abroad. I think that what Italy needs now is to be more self-confident. It's a question of trust. Everything we are doing is about trust. I think Mario Draghi is a very important booster for having more trust internationally. This is a very first important step. Having said that, there are some structural problems that you already talked about. First, it's about the reform of justice. Justice is in Italy is a very dramatic obstacle for development and change. And I do hope that this government can really address, without listening too much to different constituencies, which are, of course, protecting the status quo. The second important point, in my opinion, is about, yes, education for sure, but the education, I would say, more higher education and research. I think a huge, important investment in research, basic as well as applied research, could really change the profile of the country, can really reshape the ability to innovate, because one of the points we have is that there are very good fragmented example of excellence and innovation, but we don't have a structural critical mass in terms of higher education and research centers which can compete outside and also making the system of innovation contributing to the market and to the fourth revolution we are living, digital revolution and so on. And the third and last point, of course, is political leadership, which is always the very important, in my opinion, essential, tool for reforming democracy and making democracy do its job. I don't think that one single man, one-man show, whoever is the person, can really do the job by himself. So I hope that better reputation, a lot of trust, both internally than outside the country, that abroad can really help to make politicians and parties to take their own responsibility and run the show in the coming months and years.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Stefania. We are getting close to the end of our hour-long program. We got a few more minutes. I would like to leave the floor to Francesco for some final comments.
I just need to add something to what Azzurra and Stefania just said, because it is very true that Italy is not a country for women. But I must say that it is also not a country for young people. Here we have Claudia. I mean, this is something which is very, very important. Just talking about numbers, if I can give you just two numbers, okay. Employment rates of the comparison of employment rates for people aged from 50 to 60 years old, and the other bracket of age 24 to 35, okay? Before the financial crisis in 2007, the young people had in Italy an employment rate, so people from 24 to 35, which was 10 points higher than people close to the retirement age. Today, the old people have an employment rate which is 10 points higher than the young people. So basically, this basically means that of the three big crises that we have witnessed in the last 15 years, the first financial crisis, the sovereign debt crisis, and then the pandemic crisis, they have been paid by the young people. So this is the first point. And on education, as Stefania and I commented 100 times, again, one number, in Italy, we pay on pension, which is a subsidy for people who are going out of the labor markets, more than 4 times than what we invest into education, including R&D, of which Stefania was just talking, which is an investment into the young people who still have to enter into the labor market. So basically, we are paying for the past 4 times more than we are investing in the future. I mean, this is a country which is technically almost dead if you consider these parameters. So very briefly, if the national plan, because we even discussed with Mario Draghi once about that. If the national plan, if even the quantitative easing becomes something which can, how can I say, decrease the urgency for radical reforms. And radical reforms means to change the allocation of scarce resources among different means. That would be a disaster. This is a moral hazard. I mean, if the money is about making zombies to survive, it would be a disaster. So it's not just about injecting money into the system, but profoundly changing the system and having women, young people, immigrants, which are the most productive segments of society, as absolute priority.
Thank you, Francesco. Let's hear it from a young woman who wanted to put a question forward. Claudia, over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. And yes, linking back to Francesco's comment, as a young person who has also been very mobile, I lived, in Brussels and in Italy, in Germany, and I wanted to ask, indeed, who are we restructuring this country for? I mean, it's been years since when I went to Belgium. My older friends back then, they were saying, yes, Italy is not a meritocratic country, everything is hard. And now 10 years later, I hear the same issues. So I want really to ask, what do you think are the three main issues, let's say, and how to solve them? And especially how to make Italy appealing in a context where there is so much mobility? Because nowadays I can see, for example, young doctors that are getting paid half of what they could get paid, I don't know, in Belgium or in Germany. So, we cannot always rely on the discourse, young people should just come back out of love for the country. I think, the country should also deserve the energies of young people who put so much effort also and money into their education. So that's my question. What are the main issues and how to solve them?
Okay, that's very good, Claudia. Thank you very much. So the three main things that Italy needs to change this generational unbalance between the old and the young, and this unbalance between males and female. Can we do a quick round of answer? If you can, please be concise. Three things that Italy should do to address this massive issue. Please, who wants to start? John?
Sorry, I said it okay. Education, shift the balance of spending more towards tertiary education, and just put in more funding. I mean, let's not take money out of primary and secondary, where Italy doesn't do too badly, in order to pay for the tertiary. Tertiary education in Italy needs more money. I would say that one of the other areas that has been around for as long as I've been reporting from and about Italy has been this tragic division in the labor market between insiders and outsiders, and that's got to be tackled by making things more precarious for the insiders in order to make them less precarious for the outsiders. It's a disgrace that this should still be an issue. And in order to woo back young people, there also needs to be a thoroughgoing restructuring of the fiscal system and a shift in the balance away from labor being prime source of government revenue to property. And when I hear people like Salvini say, la casa degli italiani non si tocca, this is just you know, spitting in the wind, because every other country in Europe has a healthy level of taxation of property. Italy, in this sense, is a complete outsider, and it creates a vicious circle. So those would be my three recommendations. Others, I'm sure, will have others.
Okay, thank you, John. Bill, are you still with us? Bill?
Yes, of course, I'm still with you.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you. So three things to shift towards a fairer Italy, towards its young and its women.
Well, I think, I mean, meritocracy and meritocracy are really the three things in many ways, but they're easier to say than to do. Is part of the point. Are they a cause or are they a consequence is the eternal debate. But there's no doubt that if companies and institutions, both public and private, were really meritocratic, women would have an equal, even in some cases, a higher level within them. And women would have a much greater chance to fulfill their potential. So I mean, I think everything to focus on meritocracy, because after all, young people do have fantastic opportunities, just never in Italy. They are in London, in Paris, in New York, in Brussels, in Berlin, everywhere but Italy. And I think that the real measure, in a way, of whether Girlfriend in a Coma would still be the right title 10 years on, is that is still true, that it is still true that the brain drain is going on, and that the best opportunities for the best educated Italians remain abroad. And that while many things have woken up in the last 10 years, and there's much more awareness in some ways, I would say, you know, that's number one. Okay, number two, justice, that's been mentioned, but it's the eternal problem that obstructs investment and also some degree obstructs change in companies. It makes companies very conservative. It makes institutions very conservative, the slow justice system, the unfair justice system, and that's absolutely fundamental. And third point is, when you have the right idea, do it properly, do it sustainably, and keep doing it. After all, the reddito di cittadinanza actually contain many of the elements of the labor reform that John just recommended. It claimed to be setting up active labor market mechanisms to help people change jobs. It claimed to be altering the balance between the precarious and the secure. But of course, it was done half-heartedly. It was opposed by half the parties. It absolutely has not really been properly done. Now it's probably going to be abolished by the next Lega Fratelli d'Italia government, if there is one. So often the right idea is known about, but it's not actually done.
Great, thank you. And Azzurra, what's your three golden bullets?
Yeah, the first one was meritocracy, but this told me the idea. So I would say, first of all, dismantle gerontocracy, because we have a problem here, and which is not easy at all. And this is for young people. Second one, setting, also the rules for sharing the unpaid care labor activities, and we also had a very bad news last week with the Family Act, which should have provided the mandatory paternity leave, and which is not actually. And this is for women. And 13, money for everyone. Just put your money where your mouth is. So it's not just, taking all these press conferences where you say how young people are important for the country, and then you don't put money. Just don't say a word and put money instead.
Thank you, Stefania. Thank you, Azzurra. Stefania, please.
Thank you. I think already mentioned something before, but I wish to reiterate my hope and belief that education, of course, higher education, as John has already mentioned, is one of the most important sector where we have to focus, to invest, more money and also better money, so to say, and meritocracy as already mentioned. And wage policies. I think that Italy is one of the countries in the Western world where young people gain less than in any other, and that this is one of the main. I can tell you as a mother more than, and it's not a good incentive to stay. It's not only a question of having the possibility to have a decent life, which is important, of course, but to see to feel the value in what you are doing, especially at the beginning of your career. So I think in these 2-3 things can really help to reshape the profile of the country.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Carlo Alberto.
You know, my wish has a female name, Europa. You know, the mythical love story of Jupiter? My expectation is very straightforward, that Italy becomes not the country, but rather the European region of the decade. You know, Italy is still a gorgeous geographical expression, and John knows a couple of things about it, okay? But not yet a country, a successful nation as a whole. I hope, honestly, that Italian institutions progressively dissolve into a fully federal European Union. That's my best wish. As of today, we are entirely dependent from ECB balance sheets and monetary policy. So we are not far away from that. And Bill, you know, the recovery plan should have been designed to weld Italy into the Alps, to join a connection with Europe, not to perforate the Apennines with a brand new 19th century technology, railways. Yet, you know, this country, as a founder of Next Generation Europe, Italy can be successful because it's not threatening, it's not imposing. And we are not French, we're not German, we're Italians. We love everybody, we are loved by everybody. And that's a trait of Italian culture that is fundamental. It's trust, Stefania, right, you're right. It's trust and faith in collaboration. If something happens to Italians, is that. So Italy is the perfect European partner. And Bill, John, if even Italy can join the next EU journey, believe me, even the UK will eventually follow. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with this, I think we are reaching the end of our hour. I thank you, all of you. It's been fascinating. And thank you also for being so concise and precise, because we managed to cover quite a lot. Thank you so much. And I let the floor to Francesco Grillo, Director of Vision, that will tell us more about the next event. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Annalisa. I thought there was some question, but probably went a little bit long. I thank you, everybody. We will have a number of events next. I will mention you just the next two. We will have a great discussion with Antonio Nicita on the 30th of January with Carlo Alberto, by the way, on Il Mercato delle Verità, a great book on fake news and so on and so forth. And on the 23rd of January, if I'm not wrong, Claudia, we will have another book presentation on a book called We Are Already All Cyborgs, which is on transhumanism, and therefore the next wave of technological innovation. We'll talk about the metaverse, and probably also about my humble next book, which will be called The Internet of Beings, again on the convergence between internet and biology and medical research, etc. So I thank you all, and I really hope that as John and Bill wished many times, Italy will be the country of the decade. You never know, of the next 10 years, and we will also continue to win all European and the World Cup until 2030. And thanks a lot, everybody. Bye.
Thank you and Happy New Year. Bye.
Happy New Year.
Bye.